Hello and welcome back to the MLB DFS Slate breakdown for July 18th. We are back. We got a big time slate today. A lot of games, a lot of different ways you can go. We do have a little bit of weather concern, which we will touch on as well. But before we get into the slate, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to all our videos. Helps us out a ton. Helps us and allows us to keep giving all this information and content out for free. So come join us. LineStar, only $29.99 a month. Gets you access to all of our props, all of our DFS, and it gets you access to our good old chat room, which has been fun. And if you are a member, make sure to get involved. It can help you, and we got some good conversation going in there from time to time. Now, before we get in, what we are going to go over today is we're going to start off with the lineups from yesterday's slate, both the perfect lineups and the winning lineups. Then we're going to get into the slate itself, starting with the pitchers and then into the stacks. So let's get going here. So we'll start on the DraftKings perfect lineup. Griffin Canning and Nick Pivetta both had a game yesterday. As we mentioned yesterday, Pivetta came in as long relief once again, and he's just been very good at long relief. Let's show that. Ever since he has been in this position, he's just been crushing it. 16 points, 7 Ks in 3 innings, 6 Ks in 4 innings, 8 Ks in 5 innings, and yesterday, 13 Ks in 6 innings. Pivetta has just been a different pitcher coming out of the bullpen, and it's something we need to remember going forward is this guy has been real, and that K rate has been much higher coming out of the bullpen. As far as the hitters, we had a very interesting slate yesterday because there were a lot of teams that put up, 5+ runs, especially Cleveland with a 2-man stack in this perfect lineup. Very interesting that we have a Giants player in here, and it was a high-owned Giants stack yesterday, even though there was some weather issues, which ended up showing up, and that game unfortunately got suspended to be finished today, but the rest of the stats for today will not count for tomorrow. So kind of interesting setup, very interesting lineup we got here. And now if we go over to the DraftKings winning lineup, the guy that won by 15 points. He absolutely crushed everybody. So he had Pivetta and Canning, very low owned combo here, 26 combined percent ownership, which is nice little spot there for him. And then he pretty much had one-offs. He had two San Francisco players, the two that hit home runs yesterday, and then just one-offs from there. Very hard strategy to recreate. Congrats to him for pulling it off. He found that magic setting apparently and got it done. So congrats for him. It's just not a situation that I would continue to do, just because it's just so hard to pick everything. If we take a look at all the other lineups in the top, we have major correlation in these lineups. So congrats to him. He was able to do it. He won by a very large margin because he absolutely nailed the lineups. It's just not something that I think is very recreatable. So I wouldn't condone building a lineup like this, but hey, congrats to him. Great work. And now let's check out the FanDuel lineup. So no surprise, Pivetta's coming in here. Pivetta, super low owned, put up a giant score. And if you notice, this perfect lineup is way off the amount of salary you can spend. And like I've talked about over and over again, it's just incredibly hard to nail all the chalk. So essentially this perfect lineup is value plays all the way down minus Ohtani. And that's just not a lineup that you're going to make. However, we do want to shoot for a score that is a little bit higher and a score that will allow us to beat the rest of the contest. Now, yesterday, the winning lineup 80 points off of the perfect lineup. So we don't need the perfect lineup, and we want to use some correlation to build our lineups. Griffin Canning in the perfect lineup. We had a 4-man Cleveland stack, 2-man Seattle stack, which the Seattle stack was incredibly low owned because it was going against Gray, which really gave Johnny Pavs a nice differentiation there, along with a low-owned pitcher here. So I like his lineup. He fit in the chalk. Ohtani, who just went nuts, and Cleveland putting up 11. That's going to get you up to the top of the leaderboard. Absolutely. So nice lineup from him. Love the lineup construction. Now let's get into the fun of this slate. We'll start off with some pitcher ownership. But before we do, let's do a quick kind of rundown of the slate. I wouldn't worry too much about weather in Atlanta. I wouldn't worry too much about it in Colorado. There are a couple issues where weather may come up today. Baltimore will have some showers. There could be a delay, but I don't think the game itself is in jeopardy. But, we'll see as we come a little bit closer. Now, the big thing with the overview today that I want to talk about is, one, there's great hitting weather in Baltimore. 9.5 total is interesting. 9.5 in Toronto. 9 in New York. 11 in Cincinnati. Cincinnati also has some really nice hitting weather. And Atlanta Braves, 10.5 total in great hitting weather. It's very warm. Winds are blowing out. Real nice spot. Chicago, total of 9. And then obviously this Colorado game, a total of 11.5. So a lot of different ways we can go on this slate. Just looking at this, I could tell you that most likely ownership is going to be pretty spread with the stacks. And pitching today is very interesting. We don't really have any kind of surefire spots where you're going to want to definitely go. So DraftKings ownership, we got Brian Wu coming in highest owned at 43.5%. Now, Wu has been just spectacular, and I've been talking about him week in, week out. He's underpriced, and I would say he's still underpriced at 7.9K, and he's going against the Twins, who strike out 28% versus righties. They do have some bats. They can put up some runs, but with that K rate and this price, I really like this spot for Wu. Now, is he a little overowned? Probably, but as we go through this, you'll see pitching is just not very good today. So we may have to eat some chalk with pitching. Combined K rate of almost 30% at 7,900 is just a great spot. That's one I'm likely willing to just eat some chalk there. Bailey Ober, we got next versus Seattle. So this game, the pitching is very high owned. Seattle, 25% K rate versus righties. Ober's projection isn't great for his salary here. Combined K rate, 25%. It's absolutely a decent spot. He's been a very good pitcher this year. I just don't love it. The one thing is the Seattle lineup is good. However, there is a decent floor with Ober with how much Seattle strikes out. So I don't hate going there. I just don't love it. But really, I don't love any spot today. So next, we got Nathan Eovaldi, 10.3K, projection under 17, which isn't great. This Tampa offense is just very hard to pick on. So that's one thing we need to bring up. However, Eovaldi's been incredibly good against this offense. 85 plate attempts, hitting 179 off him. This is a guy that over his last 20 starts has a FIP of 3, K rate of 23%. The one thing I will bring up with this K rate is at his price, a combined K rate of 22.8% is just very low. So I think his upside is a little capped today. He is a solid pitcher. Probably fairly safe, but I don't love it for his price. Next, Hunter Brown in Colorado. LineStar is just simply not liking him. Projection under 10 at 8,100. Not going to get it done. The one thing I will say is Colorado does strike out, 24% K rate, combined K rate of 27%. So with that, it is slightly interesting. But the game's in Colorado, and we really just don't know how Brown will pitch in Colorado. Some guys are able to handle it. Some kind of fall apart with one, winds blowing out, high or mid 80s temps, and the elevation. It's just not very conducive to good pitching scores. Can it happen? Yes. Is it likely? Nah. And probably not that great, being one of the higher owned pitchers. Jordan Montgomery's next. Montgomery has started putting it together. He wasn't great early in the season. He's been great recently. 2.87 FIP over his last 5 starts. 25% K rate over that time. Now, this is another guy. His combined K rate isn't great. 19%. But on today's slate, I think this is a very interesting option. I don't think we're going to have real high pitching scores today. So paying down for some salary and giving you some more hitter flexibility, being able to pay up, is a very interesting spot. LineStar likes it. High projection with a median price. I think it's really interesting here. And StatCast data looks good. So I'm probably in on Montgomery a little bit. One thing that we do have to bring up is the opponent team splits. They are hitting lefties pretty well. 289 average over the last 150 games, 435 over the last 20 games. So Miami's showing up against lefties, but Montgomery has been pretty good. Our community does like him today as well. All right, next we got Taj Bradley, 7,300. We know he has some upside. The K rate is up there, but he just frankly hasn't been very good lately. StatCast data looks bad. Going against a very good offense, I don't love it. 23% combined K rate at 7,300 is slightly interesting, though. He could have a game. Carlos Carrasco, super cheap versus the White Sox. Don't mind trying to pick on the White Sox a little bit. Carrasco doesn't have huge upside, but at 6,200 at his price, the projection's probably high enough to warrant some consideration. Bryce Elder, look, this Diamondbacks team continues to hit. Elder is decent, but I just don't think the upside is there today to go that way. Skubal, let's talk about Skubal a little bit. So he went 63 pitches last time out. That was July 9th over, the All-Star break. I'm sure he pitched a little bit. I would expect the 63 to go up a little bit more. Maybe he gets into 70s. And that's kind of an interesting spot for him. He's been extremely good lately. So nice 28% K rate, 2.3 FIP over his last 5 starts. Solid combined K rate with KC striking out a lot versus lefties, and they have a low WOBA and ISO versus lefties. I think it's kind of an interesting spot with his limited pitching. Obviously, he doesn't have quite as much of a ceiling, which is concerning. But with pitching being so bad today, Skubal being low owned, maybe he can string together, say, go 5 innings and have 7-8 Ks. That is in the range of possibilities for him. And that would set him up for a possible win along with, a decent score at a medium price. So I don't mind going Skubal. Just understand, though, he's not likely to pitch into the 6+ inning. His pitch limit just isn't going to allow that today. Next, Joe Musgrove. So I think it's very interesting, this game, this Padres versus Blue Jays game. Musgrove, we know, is a very good pitcher, limits runs. On the other side, we have Alek Manoah, who has generally been a very good pitcher. His first start back from minors was very good. So we're not sure if he has corrected himself, but I kind of think this run total is just a little too high today. I might bet the under on that one. Just knowing we have two good pitchers, I think it is interesting here. But a little bit about Musgrove, 2.44 FIP. This guy has found what he had at the end of last season. He started a little slow. You remember he didn't have spring training because he broke a toe on his foot. But look, he looks like he's in real good form right now, so I think he is an interesting play that nobody is going, and he's a good pitcher. The one thing is the K rate just isn't that high, so maybe his upside is a little bit capped. Today is one day that I probably would not be too worried about getting different. There's a lot of decent plays. You just kind of got to search a little bit. Don't get stuck on ownership today. Look, Pittsburgh strikes out a lot versus Logan Allen. Logan Allen has a little bit of upside, 24% combined K rate, where Pittsburgh isn't very good versus lefties is very, very interesting to me, and a decent little projection there at his salary. So I think there's a lot of different ways we can go on the slate. Just kind of work through, figure out what you like best, and we got to touch on Alek Manoah. Versus Detroit, he looked absolutely great. Kind of looked like himself of last year. So if you want to take some chances here that he is back, I get it. He's going to be extremely low owned. One of my favorite bets for today is the under on his walks, which is 2.5 walks. As you can see here, we have, his walk totals extremely high over his last 20 starts. And that's mainly just because of this year. He did not have his control, and it just led to real bad starts all year. He went to the minors last month, worked on it. He is back, and his first start was very good. No walks, 6 innings. And it's a guy that, typically doesn't walk a lot of batters. So I don't mind the spot here today. I really do think that run total might be a little bit high. All right. Let's get over to FanDuel. We'll go over their ownership for pitchers. All right. Brian Wu coming in highest owner here, 43%. Hard to really say that is wrong. I would say on paper, he likely does have the best matchup. Now, I think there's a lot of different ways you can go. Skubal with, being 8,700. I don't know if I would do it on FanDuel with his limited upside. So, I got to bring up Patrick Sandoval a little bit because he has had some decent games. He's actually pitching fairly well, 3.38. FIP over his last 5 starts, 24% K rate, and he's going against the Yankees, which I'm not really that scared about right now. So I wouldn't mind going there at 7,100, 26 point projection. If he can go 6+ innings, it could very well pay off the salary. Musgrove, obviously, I think is interesting. Logan Allen, I think, is very interesting. And Alek Manoah is just incredibly cheap. You could play Manoah and pretty much do whatever you want on offense just because he's so cheap. So I think there's a lot of different ways to go for pitching, but no amazing spots that you really need to get after. Now let's get into the highest owned stacks. Oh, sorry. I said highest owned, and then I went to ownership. All right, so the highest owned stack is the Giants. Very interesting that we are not getting the Colorado game as the highest owned stack. However, Houston isn't very far behind. Now, the Giants, they are in Cincinnati Great American Small Park, so there is a higher likelihood of home runs. Thus, the Giants kind of stepping up as higher ownership. Now, one thing I have to say about the Giants here, the Giants do like to play, platoon splits and sub guys out when it when they get into an advantageous spot. So, with that being said, I don't like the 5-man stacks as much as, say, a shorter 2 or 3-man stack for them today. The reason being is, like I said, the Cincinnati runs, the runs that happen at that ballpark are a little more heavily favored to home runs. With that, more likely that you have 2 or 3 guys that go off and not a full slate of 5. I don't hate a stack of 5 or a stack on 4 on FanDuel. I do like the smaller stacks of Giants a little bit more than the bigger ones. So Houston coming in high owned too. I think you have to consider them. It looks like it is somewhat of a bullpen game with, a bullpen that isn't great. So Houston obviously looks good. I think you really, really, really need to consider the Braves today. Braves, very good hitting weather. They're going a little under-owned. Zach Davies isn't great. He does allow some home runs, and in this weather with the wind blowing out, I don't think it's a spot that sets up very well for Davies. Boston versus Oakland. Look, Oakland bullpen is bad. Luis Medina has been much better lately, and he is a highly touted prospect. But I think you can consider some Oakland players here. Padres. So, Padres have been hitting. They've been pretty good at the plate lately. Now, Alek Manoah, I think, is very interesting one to attack, or he's an interesting one to consider today. Just because, as I said, he's been a very good pitcher lately, was terrible earlier this year. Has he fixed the things that were wrong? Has he not? It's a pretty small sample size right now. But I think, with that being said, I think it's a spot you can play either side. I do think that Padres may be going a little bit over-owned versus Manoah. With, his 3 seasons of being a good pitcher, but it is an interesting spot, and it's a high variance spot, so it is one we like to focus on for GPPs. Washington versus Tyon, not a bad spot whatsoever. Tyon 5.22 FIP, so Washington is not going to be very high owned, and they've been kind of a pesky offense, put together some innings and some runs every now and then. Baltimore is one I definitely want to talk about. Look, Michael Grove, I just don't think is very good. 5.4 FIP over his last 5. 5 FIP over his last 20. Baltimore offense is very good. A lot of different ways you can go. And they aren't that expensive, and it's really good hitting weather. I think it's 90 degrees with the wind blowing out. If Baltimore still had its fences in a little bit, I would be slamming Baltimore at this ownership. The fences are out a little bit, so maybe not as many home runs, but nonetheless, I think it is a great spot for Baltimore today. Patrick Corbin has been DFS's favorite punching bag for a while now. The game is in Wrigley. Wrigley can be pretty prone to home runs, so I don't mind that whatsoever. In this Cubs team, can be kind of sneaky and put up some runs, so I don't mind going there. Now our highest projected, we got Astros, we got Braves, we got Cincinnati. Cincinnati is going super low owned, so I think you got to consider them, especially with this type of projection. We're still waiting officially for what the Giants are doing pitching-wise, but it's likely some sort of a bullpen game here. So, Dodgers are popping up a little bit. I don't mind the Dodgers. You can always play the Dodgers. Tyler Wells hasn't been great lately. 5.25 FIP, 4.66 over his last 20. So you can absolutely try and pick on them. I already told you I love Baltimore. Don't mind Boston here. Texas is very interesting. One of the best offenses in the league. And Bradley has been giving up, some hard contact and some runs with a 5.62 FIP over his last 5. So they are interesting as well. And we've talked about Padres. One thing I will bring up is Colorado, as I saw them right here. Look, Hunter Brown has been a decent pitcher, but it's Colorado. Literally, everybody gets blown up in Colorado. Extremely good pitchers get blown up in Colorado. So I wouldn't worry about Hunter Brown being the pitcher. He's never pitched in Colorado. You have, mid 80-degree temps with the wind blowing out at that elevation. And Colorado is going very low owned. And, their implied total isn't that much different than the Astros. So I think you can totally go with Colorado stack today as well. All right, now let's go with a little value stack action here. So we got the Royals versus Skubal. So gotta talk about Skubal. Look, he's not going to be going real deep into this game, so it's interesting. Skubal is a very good pitcher, but you're going to get into that bullpen, and then maybe you can, get some damage done. Washington definitely considers a low stack. The Astros are popping up as a value stack a little bit here, so that's pretty interesting as well. And also those Orioles that, I like very much. They got a lot of different guys that can hit, and the offense is good, so I think you have to consider it. You could pick on Herman with the Angels as well. It's warm in LA as well. So many different ways you can go on this slate. I think it's a very interesting slate here. So ceiling-wise, Braves are all over the ceiling. Just understand, you're not going to go to 20K, 29K on your stack. So these ones are more likely the, mid-20s or lower 20K stacks are probably the ones you would end up playing so you can fit in some pitching. But we've pretty much gone through everybody there. This is a little bit of a long one, so we will end it there. But I think there's a ton of different ways you can go. Really like the Orioles as a stack. Like Colorado. I like Cincinnati. I like the Giants. I like the Astros. Love the Braves. I think my favorite right now are the Braves, Baltimore, and Colorado stack-wise. Also don't mind some Cubs and Washington value-wise. But Washington is definitely further down the Cubs for me today. So, good luck today, guys. We will be back tomorrow. Have a good one. Adios.